So, hello everyone. Hi, Laurie.
I know.
Well, I'm always excited to have you on because we always have a good time talking with each other. So, for our folks that are listening in, Laurie Thompson is a licensed mental health counselor, and she works on my team. And we have worked together for so many years. Gosh, probably close to 15 years now. Both of us just love the field that we're in. I was so excited when Laurie and I connected all those years ago because I didn't know anybody else that was so passionate about dementia. And we would laugh a lot about how many people do you know can geek out on dementia all day long.
Yeah.
So we've had a lot of fun time learning together. So anyways, welcome back, Laurie. You've been on here at least once or a couple of times now. And we wanted to come on today and talk about just about what it's like to lose yourself as a caregiver. And how, like, something I've always thought about is like, at what point, like, sometimes I feel weird referring to people as caregivers too, because it's like you're a spouse, you're a daughter, you're a friend, you're not a caregiver. That nobody signs up for that word or that term. And so um yeah, I think this will be a good conversation. So, Laurie, I'll let you. Do you want to jump in with any initial questions or comments to get us going?
Yeah. Well, I think, what comes to mind in meeting with clients that we work with that are in this caregiver position, whether they're, spouse, adult child. We hear this so often of, I don't even know who I am anymore. I'm so lost in this. And I think it's worth just kind of taking a step back and doing a deep dive into this because, we want you to be able to see yourself in this. And that's so important. And, I think when we kind of take a step back, the first thing that comes to mind is sort of to do a little bit of exploring in brain science behind this and the way our brains function with, you know, when you're caring for someone with dementia, day in and day out, there are changes in the brain that chronic stress that floods your system with, that stress, it really reshapes, the way our brain's functioning, that it impacts the hippocampus that's responsible for emotional balance. And in that comes your sense of self. So when that part changes, it's a really scary feeling.
It is, yeah. I think about how we identify so much with our thoughts and our feelings. Like, we think our thoughts are ourselves. We think our feelings that we are our feelings. And so I think that's such a good point, Laurie, is this piece of that when we can kind of take a little bit of a step back and recognize that our thoughts are just part of a program, and our feelings they're just chemicals that are flooding our system based on the program that we have running. It helps separate you from I guess it gives us a sense of not feeling like such a victim to what's happening in our bodies.
Right. I think it's important to name it when you know where it's coming from and why that's going on. And we know, that there are those changes in the hippocampus, and it on the emotional side, it really steals your sense of self. And I remember this so well too, just in my own, and not at all to compare this population with having a baby, but coming into having our daughter, I remember that feeling of just, I don't know where I went. I'm not here. And it was such I just remember feeling a sense of grief and just completely loss of self, and equally scary, of just how am I gonna, in the midst of pouring myself into, this new person, how do I pull myself back? How do I find myself again?
Right.
And
Yeah. And how, because here's the other point, right? And I talk about this a lot with caregivers too, is that you'll never be the old you either. Like there's this desire to go back to the old you or the old self. And that's what makes sense is I just want to feel like myself again, everything is so unfamiliar right now. And you want that sense of safety in the familiar, like
yes,
familiar. And when everything is unfamiliar, the rug's been pulled out from under you, you're just trying to stay afloat. We want to go back. And yeah, let's talk about that for a minute, because the thing is we can't ever go back.
right.
When you have an experience like intense grief or fear or physical complications or watching somebody declining in front of you, or being exposed to such extreme amount of stress that you can't even you don't even have the luxury to sit and contemplate things. You're just trying to just survive. It's like that changes you. Yeah. And
You're literally rewiring yourself around someone else's needs.
yeah.
And
Well, and what science does show, what we do know, is that when you step outside of the familiar, that is the perfect state to reprogram your brain. Where the thing let's see if I can explain this concept, because it's even hard for me to grasp a little bit, is that when we go through our lives, the whole purpose and goal, we're literally programmed to make life easy on ourselves, to use the less effort and less energy physically. And so our brain is connecting these neurons, these synapses are like linking. When we have a thought over and over again, or we do something over and over again, our brain creates these shortcuts, and links these strong connections so that we don't have to think about it. We don't have to put effort into driving home after work. We didn't not even know how we got home because we're somewhere else, but that link is strong. Or those thoughts, that inner voice that's telling us, sometimes positive, sometimes negative, when we do it over and over, it's linked. And then we believe that's who we are, right? We think that's our identity because it's a program in our brain that's just running on autopilot. And then when you are exposed to a situation where that program doesn't work anymore, you're like that suddenly, like for good or bad, that program isn't working. It can be both terrifying, but the reframe of that is that it's such an opportunity to reprogram your brain. And so, yeah, so I guess that's the piece that I want to stress, is that it's an opportunity. Like, what is
right.
positive side of this is that you are teaching your brain how to function and cope, in a high stress state. And you get to choose how you are thinking about the situation. That's the beauty of being human, is we always have a choice in how we choose to think about it. And so we can get lost in the grief, and understandably so. We can get lost, we lose ourselves, and and that can feel scary. It's supposed to feel scary. When we realize that we are not our feelings and we are not our thoughts, I can switch this, I can reframe this and rewire my brain to be a survivor, to be, full of compassion, to be able to articulate and communicate in a way that you haven't had to before, to learn how to put yourself first and take care of the physical, what do they call it, a meat suit, physical body that we have that has all these rules like sleep and eating and yeah.
Yeah, and I think that is the tricky part, is that no one oh, I it's very rare that you would say that, someone's coming in anticipating this role, so it's sort of,
Right.
I think a lot of time it happens so slowly, that loss of self, and it's kind of quiet, it's maybe first canceling your walk with a friend, or so and so isn't calling me anymore, or it's kind of almost shedding parts of your old self, and you may not even really know what's going on. There's this term of role engulfment, in that it sort of swallows the rest of who you are sometimes.
Yeah.
But yes, again, just coming into the opportunity of that choice of, okay, it's the word empowerment comes to mind. What can I do in this moment? And even if it's small things, um, yeah, I remember that. It might have been, I'm going to be going from sweats to jeans today, small choices, or
Yeah.
I'm going to listen to music from an area of my life that was just carefree and happy. And man, what that does to yourself and the brain, just sort of those little
Yeah.
shifts in the day to day too,
So true. So true. You're making me think of kind of that mindfulness piece of engaging the senses, like the sense of smell and taste and sound and touch and there's what, 5 senses? Well, there's 6 senses. Um, there's 5 days of the week. So I know with some clients I've said, what if you just assigned Monday through Friday a sensory day for yourself? This is about you, like today you're just gonna notice the colors in the world. Like even pick a color, orange. You're gonna notice when there's an orange car or an orange flower or something. Or you're gonna notice the smells for a day. You're gonna stop and smell the flowers. You're gonna, smell um the soap as you're taking a shower. Just really bring those senses in. And what that does is it helps bring us back to the present moment, because we get lost in that. We just get lost in that world of, overwhelm and it just helps bring us back to the present. And it's amazing. I mean, it's a mindfulness technique, but it's amazing how important that mindfulness piece can be in recentering yourself and your nervous system. So
Yes. And I know when we talk with clients too, it's a challenge, because oftentimes we don't have the time to really be thinking about this. And so it's sort of a challenge in the sense of, think of it as a practice. If you could really pause and think about this, it has to become something you work at and something you're giving some effort to. It's a practice. And, it's sort of, I think the other challenges too that come in is, you might feel guilt for missing your old life, or angry that there isn't space right now for your own needs. Or even, I can remember too, in my experience after having our daughter, was if I had a moment, say maybe she was napping and I was sitting there, immediately what came to mind is, okay, what am I doing right now? Because whatever I'm doing has to be for her. I have time for this, but it still would go to her. You know what I mean? It was foreign in the moment to think about, that's where I say it's sort of this, it's a challenge, and giving yourself grace in that, because that feels a little foreign.
Yeah. And I think too that caregivers, the people that end up in the role of a caregiver, are often, not always, but often the people that tend to be caring people, right? They
Yeah.
tend to put others before themselves. And so the other thing that I think about is so what I'm kind of getting at is caregivers are really set up for failure. The expectations that we put on ourselves as a caregiver or the expectations that society puts on caregivers, it's this it really is a setup for failure because there's first this unrealistic expectation, right? That you're going to be able to do it all.
Right.
Not only do what you normally need to do as a human being to survive, taking care of yourself, right? Like eating and sleeping and bathing and working or paying bills or cleaning the house, the daily, normal, everyday things.
Right.
Then you add the care of another person on top of that. And often, the caregivers that you and I work with are people who are caring for people with really chronic medical conditions and predominantly dementia. And so there's this whole other layer of suddenly people being thrown into this boat of, nobody's an expert on this stuff until you're like in it. And so you're just trying to tread water. You're trying to learn about what's normal, what isn't normal.
Yeah.
Am I supposed to be doing something? Am I supposed to know this or that?
Right.
And on top of all of that, they're grieving.
Right.
You're as a caregiver, you are you described it so well, with having your baby too. It's like, I don't know who I am anymore. I'm grieving myself and my own identity. I'm grieving what I thought life was supposed to look like. This existential crisis. I'm grieving what my future may look like. And then there's my loved one who I'm losing before my very eyes. And
Right.
the history, often that loved one is your person. It's your spouse that knows you better than anyone and you know them better than anyone, or your parents the same thing, and
Yeah.
oh, it's I'm telling you, I truly believe like that caregiving is a spiritual journey. Like it is about you tapping into the most inner depths of what it means to be human and experiencing your own helplessness, sometimes hopelessness,
Right.
truly stepping into that state of the unknown
Yeah.
and still functioning.
It's incredible.
Just
I mean, yeah, so incredible. And I think when we come back to that piece of opportunity and empowerment, the brain's, capacity to adapt is there even after those long periods of stress. You can rebuild those pathways to reconnect.
even stronger. Yeah, even better. I would
Even
say.
better. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, there's this term of identity anchors and again, we talk about this as a practice, but if it's something small or if it's that one, like I said, that one song or, putting on your favorite sweater or, carving out time. And I think too, and I see this with clients when we maybe have a little bit of a challenge for the week of sort of, I was just talking with a client about this a few weeks ago that, she was able to take a trip, overnight trip away. And I think the biggest piece for her was oh, I can do this. When you take that opportunity to kind of step away and even if it's for an hour, right, or a half hour, but once you see that you're able to kind of step away from this role that you're so engulfed in,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, okay, this is okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah.
Because I think, sometimes make a list of, small, medium, large, right? Like the small things that you can do in a moment. If you have 5 minutes, let's make a list, of those things you can do in 5 minutes to help ground you and recenter you and bring you back to yourself. What would that be if you had 5 minutes? And often it's, yeah, for me, and I've said this before, for me, I will go in the bathroom, lock the door, turn off the light, sit on the floor and just breathe and just breathe. Like it's just being in sitting on the floor and grounding and being in a space that you wouldn't, and just centering is so huge. But that 5 minutes, like you said, Laurie, it might be that you play a certain song. It might be that you take your shoes off outside and put your feet on the ground. It might be that you get out your phone and take a picture of the beautiful sky. It could be so many different things. And then, the next layer would be, okay, what if you had an hour or 2 hours? What would you do then? And so it's helpful because we find ourselves sometimes in that situation. Like you, again, your description with your daughter being born is like, okay, you have like a moment, she's taking a nap. What do you do? And then you just scramble. If you have those kind of lists of things that you can fall back on, that's helpful.
Yes.
I do want to say one thing to that point that's helpful, I think, to understand is that when we go back to the science of our brain and how we're wired, caregivers are so good at operating in a high stress state.
Yeah.
Because what happens to the brain is that when we are faced with a threat, and a threat in this case is the threat of survival, quite literally, your body does not know that someone isn't dying right now. It's acting as if you are in danger or someone else is in danger now. And so we flip into that survival state. And what happens is quite literally the blood flow to all the parts of our brain narrows, like, our extremities. Some people talk about going numb, and we don't think straight when you're in a high stress state because I love the work of, it's Robert Sapolsky wrote this book called Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers. I think that's the name of the book. It's so good. I've seen him speak at conferences. He's a Stanford researcher, and he would go to Africa every summer. He'd take his family and his kids, and he studied baboons because baboons were the closest socially to human beings in that they were the top of the food chain. They didn't have any threats to them. And baboons are the only species known besides human beings, that will create stress when there's no stress. In other words, he talks about how when cheetah is chasing a zebra and, it's this chase and it's survival and the brain just narrows. It doesn't stop to look at this gorgeous sunset in the distance. It's not thinking about, homework or life. It's like literally in survival mode.
Right.
Then when the cheetah, misses and the zebra, when they're done with the chase and the zebra survives, if the zebra survives, what happens is the zebra discharges the stress. They'll shake and they go back to grazing. They don't sit around like, oh my God, where's the cheetah? They literally discharge it and it's done.
Right.
And they go back to, so the animal kingdom is amazing at managing stress. Human beings are horrible at it because we stay in that state.
Yeah.
We literally have our foot on the gas and the brake at the same time constantly.
Wow.
And our physiology does not know that a cheetah is not chasing us right now. It doesn't know that because that's what we're feeding our brain. All that to say that when you live in that high stress state, we know what happens to our bodies physically, the impact on our organs and our lifespan and our health span. But also, you cannot think creatively
Right.
when all the blood is flowing to the survival parts of the brain. You can't access helpful information. You can't not be stressed. You can't, so it's really like it was good that you brought that up in the beginning. It's helpful to know that, yeah, our body is reacting as if, and we really do have control over how we interpret things, because literally that can mean the life and death of you. Like I said, your lifespan, your health span, how you think about your situation truly does determine the outcome of the situation in your life. So
And I think all of that just speaks to how critical it is to hold on to those parts of yourself. And
yeah,
again, it's a challenge, it's a practice. I had this with another client recently about, okay, you know, it's all consuming, the term, the role, caregiver, it's your day to day. But think about who am I beyond caregiving?
yeah,
I'm an artist. I'm a friend. I'm a, researcher, anything that when you can kind of think tapping into those parts of those identity anchors,
yes, yes,
I think are those neat opportunities to kind of reclaim and recenter yourself
yeah.
and it maybe gets you a little excited about something beyond that role that you're
Well, and you are literally rewiring your brain. The more you ask yourself those questions
yes.
or look for it, the more you're going to find it, and the more you're going to ask yourself. It's a cycle. So we talk about the neurons and the synaptic connections in the brain. It can be so hard when they're wired in there, that negative voice, or the part that is not wanting to be motivated is wired and so strong. It takes effort to change the thought to something else. But once you do, and you do it over and over, it rewires, and then it becomes easier and easier.
Right.
So I love that. I love that you encourage that. I know that I do that for myself, even, is this piece of like, I'm constantly reminding myself, like, I am the master of my thoughts, not my brain. My brain is not me. My brain is just the wired program. So I'm always like, okay, check. Is that right? Is that not right? Do I need to rewire that part? Do I need to change that thought? And
Yeah.
yeah.
So you're you saying that too. What's ironic is now my daughter, who's now 6, that we'd have those talks where she goes, "Oh, my brain, it's trying to get me to think this way." And then we stop and we go, "Oh, no, no. I have power over my brain." And she'll say that. She'll say, "Oh, I'm in control. I get to choose. I have that choice." And
Yeah.
it's funny because I'm talking
Well, yeah.
postpartum. Now she's 6.
She's using it.
But yeah, and that's so true. That our nervous system, it doesn't need hours or days. It needs those signals of
Yeah.
safety, of rewiring. And again, yeah, when you're opening up that opportunity, that practice, it's that feeling of, okay, like I can do this. And wow,
Mhm.
did that feel good?
Mhm.
Even for just a moment, reclaiming yourself. And, I think of those grounding or even practices like a memory journal or writing down a moment today where I felt like myself today or
Love that. I just did that with a client too. It's funny you bring that up. She was, she's really, exploring how her gifts, I guess, her strengths, she has a lower self-esteem about herself. And so, we were exploring ways in which that thought might not be true, and she was sharing
yeah,
beautiful stories, beautiful moments of how people tell her all the time how how much they like her. Like she's just easy to be around, and she doesn't understand why they say that, but anyway, all of that to say, we she got a little sticky notes and a jar on her coffee table in her living room. And when anything positive happens, I've encouraged her to write what went well today. And so just the act of writing what went well, like you said earlier, even if it's just that you got out of bed, you're worried about all day. If that's what went well, that's what went well,
Right.
or you changed your thoughts, or you anything, something happened to you or you initiated something. But the act of just writing that down every night or when something cool happens to you and putting it in the jar, it's an act of rewiring the brain. And it's again putting out the signal of what you're wanting it more of in life. And when you put that signal out there, it finds you. It happens. You will find it. And so it's amazing how much easier that process became for her.
Yeah.
And we brought that up because I had another client that did it. I did it myself, and we had another client. I did it on synchronicities. I was writing whenever a cool synchronicity happened, I would write it down and put it in the jar. And then a client did it on what was it? It was something else. But anyway, positive things. And again, the beautiful piece of that was just that at the end of the year, you realize how it has become second nature now instead of being such an effort to look for things or find things.
Well, it speaks to why the practice of it is so important.
Yeah.
And I love the thought too of, the things that we're talking about, and also kind of shifting even into bringing your identity into the caregiver role. If you're a creative person, sing with them, dance with them, or if you're a fun humor type person, bringing that into those caregiving moments. Or if you're spiritual, finding those moments together. Or you don't always have to, I guess I should say, step out of your caregiving role to find yourself. You can maybe bring it into, because that makes you feel, I think, a little more of your authentic self too, when you can bring in those
that so much, Laurie. Oh my God. I have to tell you, I really have been doing a lot of deep work in this area of holding opposites at the same time, And so, you're just speaking to that so much. Like, you can be an amazing caregiver and take care of yourself. You can take care of others and yourself. You can be deep into a passion and still do what needs to be done. You can, all these, like, we think we have to choose one or the other.
Right.
And we can hold this space for both. And it's so powerful. It's just breaking these concepts that we have in our mind about what it's supposed to look like, how we're measuring ourselves, or how others are judging us, or, yeah, it's really powerful opportunity to just break out of a lot of that.
It makes me think of how many times you and I have said how much we love the word "and."
Yes.
There's
right?
and.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it too. Well, Laurie, I love you so much, and you're so amazing, and you are such a gift to um all the clients who get to see you and the people who get to listen to you. And I'm so fortunate to get to work with you for so long. And I want to thank you for hopping on. And I'll say too that I want to plan to have you on more because I've just gotten such great feedback from our listeners. I've heard from so many people, they love to just listen when you come on because we just kind of back and forth, and they said they feel like they're like a fly on the wall listening to our conversation. And I kind of like that too, because
Yeah.
frees us up to share what's up.
Well, and I love, it really is such an honor and a privilege to be able to hear the deepest parts of, our clients and that vulnerability. So I think it's just such a gift to be able to hear in this capacity, you and I talking and kind of bringing it to the table, because how much of a relief it can be to a caregiver to feel like,
Oh, right.
okay, this is normal.
Yeah,
This
not
is
alone.
okay.
How
Yeah.
many people we talk about that a lot. How many people have said to us, like, you mean other people feel this way, or other people are
Yeah.
thinking the same thing, or and
Yeah.
it blows our mind because we hear it all the
All the
time.
time.
But they don't,
No.
caregivers can be so isolated, and
Exactly.
yeah, even if they're
It
surrounded by people, they're not feeling seen or heard or understood. And
Yeah. I had that recently where a client, she was about to kinda share a thought, and she said, "Maybe this is probably just I probably shouldn't say this." And I said, "If you feel comfortable, please do, because it may be that I've heard it before." And once she said it, it was, yes, all the time.
yeah.
So I think that's just, yeah, the beauty of this space, so that we can kind of bring that to light a little bit, and hopefully it feels. But yeah, I when it comes to that piece of identity, try to give yourself that opportunity to see yourself in it and anchor yourself a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. All right. Well, thank you, Laurie.
Thank you.